Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see everyone, folks here in the room, and those of you who are watching us on Zoom. I'm Judith Carl, the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Capital Development Fund, and I am very thrilled and glad to be here today to designate Sonia Gardner as the UNCDF Goodwill Ambassador for Gender Equality in Access to Finance. The United Nations Goodwill Ambassadors are a very select group of prominent and distinguished individuals carefully chosen from the fields of the arts, literature, science, entertainment, sports, and a range of other professional fields who have agreed to help focus worldwide attention on the work of the United Nations. As recipients of this high honor bestowed by the UN Secretary General to a global citizen, Goodwill Ambassadors volunteer their time, their talents, and passion to raise awareness for the United Nations efforts to eradicate poverty, to achieve sustainable development, and to improve the lives of billions of people around the world. The first UN Goodwill Ambassador was actually appointed by UNICEF in 1954. The nomination for this position has to be made by a head of a United Nations agency, and it goes through a very rigorous due diligence process before going up for endorsement by the Secretary General. I was very pleased and proud to be able to nominate Sonia to be UNCDF's first ever Goodwill Ambassador. We've never had a Goodwill Ambassador before, so this is our first time. Sonia's professional and philanthropic achievements and the consistent leadership she's demonstrated as one of the most prominent senior women in finance makes her a very natural fit for UNCDF. The UN Capital Development Fund makes public and private finance work for the poor in the world's 47 least developed countries. We offer last mile finance models that unlock public and private resources, especially at the domestic level, to reduce poverty and support local economic development. Our financing models work through three different channels. First, through inclusive digital economies, which leverage digitalization of the economy for greater SDG impact. Local development finance, which capacitates localities to drive local economic expansion and sustainable development. And investment finance, which provides catalytic financial structuring, de-risking, and capital deployment to drive SDG impact and domestic resource mobilization. The problems we're trying to solve are many and big. They're stubborn structural problems. How to make finance flow for greater positive impact on the SDGs, particularly at the local level and in the poorest countries. How do we support structural changes that make the international capital markets better serve women, youth, and underserved communities? How do we make every invested dollar count towards sustainable development? And how can an organization like UNCDF prepare local financial ecosystems for greater engagement by domestic and international investors to recognize that there are viable and profitable investment opportunities in poor countries that also serve SDG achievement? These are the questions that we try to answer every day at UNCDF, and they're part of a much wider and dynamic conversation across the entire international development system and the financial sector. We're seeing now that 5 years after the SDGs were adopted and at the beginning of what the Secretary General has designated as the decade of action for the SDGs, that we need to accelerate and move a lot faster if we want to get close to achieving the SDGs by 2030, particularly in light of the COVID pandemic. To take one incredibly important example for why we're here today, we know that female entrepreneurs face more barriers in accessing finance than their male counterparts, even though women-owned small and medium-sized enterprises represent 30 to 37% of all businesses in emerging markets. Our data from 2015 indicate there are 8 to 10 million women-owned SMEs in emerging markets, and their unmet financial needs range from 260 billion to 320 billion a year. We know that closing the financing gap and supporting women will have outsized development impacts. The World Bank estimates that across Africa, 26% of all households, accounting for 21% of Africa's population, are currently headed by women, and these households are more likely to suffer poverty and hardship. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that if female farmers had access to the same resources as men, there would be 150 million fewer hungry people in the world. Gender equality is also good for governments. If women participate equally in the economy with men, global tax revenues could increase by 1.5 trillion, most of it in emerging markets. And McKinsey estimates that if women contributed to GDP at the same pace as men, it could add $28 trillion to global GDP by 2025. And yet the gender finance gap extends from microcredit all the way to venture capital. Women are underrepresented as founders and leaders of companies receiving private equity, venture capital funding. Only 7% of total PEVC funding in emerging markets goes to female-led businesses. According to the OECD, 90% of innovative startups seeking venture capital investments today have been founded by men, 90%. Women-owned startups receive 23% less funding and are 30% less likely to have a positive exit compared to male-owned businesses. So the need to close the gender gap in access to finance is there at all levels, and the time is right to scale up our efforts to solve this problem. As we mark the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, a watershed moment for women's rights, we will look to you, Sonia, to raise awareness on the role finance plays in evening the playing field and creating new financial pathways for women to have full access and agency in their local economies. So our heartfelt congratulations to you, Sonia, our thanks. Thank you for your generosity in offering your time, your experience, your willingness to learn, and your many skills to support UNCDF as we work to expand financial inclusion, support local governments, and provide access to finance in the poorest countries in the world. We're really very, very thrilled to have you joining us, and we look forward to working together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judith. I'm truly honored and humbled to assume the role of Goodwill Ambassador for UNCDF. The work being done using finance to support economic growth in the world's poorest countries is pragmatic, creative, and it helps to improve the investment climate and living standard for underserved women and communities globally. I've greatly enjoyed learning about UNCDF in the last year, its work, and its partners around the world. Last year, I was able to meet Yvonne Aki-Sawyer, the incredible mayor of Freetown, Sierra Leone, at an event during the UN General Assembly. Since that meeting, I have helped the mayor build an early learning center in the Congo Water Market in Freetown for 40 preschool children ages 1 through 5. A second center for an additional 40 children will be built later this year. My gift was made in honor of my son, Sam, and his wife, Jasmine's upcoming wedding at the time. The school actually started yesterday, and Yvonne sent me a ton of pictures, and the kids look so happy, and the school is colorful and beautiful, and it's truly, truly heartwarming. These centers will allow women working at the market to have their children get a head start on a quality education. I look forward to broadening this type of support to make finance work for the poor and help achieve the SDGs. In much of the world, women are the providers. They, like the large women in Sierra Leone, are earning money and supporting their families every day. It's very hard for them to get any sort of financing or backing or even childcare. We need to improve the pipeline and build a system that supports women and offset the systemic inequality women have traditionally faced. Studies have found that mentorship for young women is so important. Both senior women and men need to participate. I saw this in my work as the chair of 100 Women in Finance, which does such important work with its Next Gen program. We need everyone to drop their preconceived notions what men and women can accomplish. address the person, their dedication, how hard they work, and the quality of their work. Women must have a chance to show they can excel. My hope is to create a network of senior professionals who will mentor women in the least developed countries and help them find solutions to lift them and their families out of poverty. I also know that UNCDF is a leader in advancing blended finance solutions for the LDCs, making public and private finance work for the poor. They help set up blended finance funds and research and advocate for how it can play a greater role in driving economic development. This is an area I hope more investors will pay attention to in the coming years, and I plan to advocate for that. My personal background is that I was born in Morocco and came to the United States when I was 4 years old with my family. I grew up in a small 2-bedroom apartment with my brother and sister in the same room for many years. My parents came here with almost nothing, and their primary goal was for us to have a good education. They made incredible sacrifices, and we all went to college and law school on scholarships and loans. I entered the world of finance working with my brother in 1986, and we built our business together slowly over time. As a woman, I didn't face the same challenges that many women face, confronting the glass ceiling and working their way up the corporate ladder. But I faced different challenges. At the top of the list was the challenge over the last 30 years of being the only senior woman in the room on too many occasions. Many books have been written about how to solve this problem, and although some progress has been made over the years, there is still much work that needs to be done to increase the number of senior women in finance. As you can imagine, gender inequality in the LDCs is a far greater problem. My view on philanthropy is that we should all provide financial support in any way we can, and also give our time and use our voice to help improve the lives of others. That is what I plan to do for UNCDF over the next few years. I'm grateful every day for the success I've had over the years, and I believe giving back is central to anyone's success. I have truly lived the American dream, and giving back is part of that dream. My area of focus will be on gender equality in the 47 least developed countries, working to give women access to economic resources. These women need capital to start and grow businesses and provide a path to lift their families out of poverty. I want to thank Judith and Esther for providing me this opportunity to serve as Goodwill Ambassador and for this incredible honor. I will do my very best to help you achieve all of your important goals. Thank you.
Is that what you like?
Yes,
Hi. One, I wanted to congratulate my sister Sonia. I don't think there's a better person to be a UN ambassador than Sonia. And part of the reason she talked a little bit about it, but if you think of what she's had to overcome, I mean, coming here, not speaking English, as you saw now, she's fluent, so she's doing really well. But it wasn't her first language. But you think about what she had to do. Had to go to college on scholarship. We went to the same school. I graduated with honors, so I thought I was doing really well. She graduated with highest honors, so she actually did substantially better than me. We then both went to law school. I thought I did well. She actually did a lot better. And, went to law school on scholarship. And then coming and working and doing everything that she's accomplished. When she talks about being the only woman in the room, not only was she the only woman in the room, but she was also the smartest person in the room. And she didn't talk about that. And that's the reason why when I look at Avenue and what we've done, why we've succeeded is really because of Sonia and everything that she's done. We wouldn't be where we are. And Sonia has decided to sort of dedicate her life to helping others now. And yes, we've been really lucky, and Sonia has lived the American dream. But, you know, as John F. Kennedy said, to whom much is given, much is expected. And Sonia is living that axiom. She actually believes that we have a responsibility to give to those. And I think what the UN has done in making her a Goodwill Ambassador, you know, I'm biased, but I would say that's probably the best decision they've ever done. So I think from there, now we're going to see a different UN, and we're going to see one that is actually bringing about the change that is needed out there. So I want to congratulate Sonia. I want to congratulate the UN for making a brilliant decision. But more important, I think what you're going to find going forward is the help that she's going to give to people and to women around the world, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and I couldn't think of a better person. So I would like to congratulate her in her well-deserved honor. Thank you very much.
I'm not exactly, guys, how I'm supposed to follow that. But I will say this, I was actually thinking about, with 5 minutes, how I could actually address some of the things that have got us to this point. And I do want to do a little bit of a shout out to the room. I remember a conversation sitting down, listening to someone. I was speaking at an event in 2018, and it was on impact investing. And one of the people after the event said to me, you have to stop and listen to this woman. You have to pay attention. I said, yeah, but I got to go. I was like, no, you really have to pay attention to them. So I stayed afterwards, and here I was, a strong believer already 2.5 years ago of like this impact idea. And this woman basically completely energized me into this cause that we have here today. That's when I met Esther. She was that speaker. And I learned that then that pretty much she was a doer, kind of a mover and shaker kind of person, and that I should probably pay attention because whatever she said was probably going to happen anyway. So this happening today, thank you, Esther, for all the work you've done putting this together. And then also I want to do also another shout out. It's like the more I learned about the UNCDF, you probably couldn't come to a higher calling and such helping millions of people all around the world. And that's because of one person who's here in the room. Judith, thank you very much for making this whole organization happen and for all the great things. I've learned so much about it that's going on. But I would reiterate what Mark said. You made a good choice. And I'll take you back 5.5 years now when Avenue was starting to come up with this idea of doing an impact fund and doing profit with purpose, doing things where we didn't just care about the shareholder, but also the stakeholders that were involved, a true impact fund. And that was 5 years ago. And for the first 2 years, we had hired people, we spent some money, and yet Sonia's basically unwavering commitment to actually having this happen was there the whole time. I won't argue, I did kind of hide at the year end with the fact that we still hadn't had a fund after 2 years, but here we are today with a fund that's actually successful, profitable, and moving onward and upward. So that's all because of Sonia. So thank you, Sonia, for making that happen. So that's all I really wanted to say today, but thank you all again for basically these two groups coming together.
Now, maybe I'll so now we'll ask Sonia to please sign the official UN designation letter of her status as Goodwill Ambassador. We have 2 copies for you. One's for you to keep and one's for us to take. So if you could sign there, please. Here. Great. So you should keep that one because that's the nicer copy. And then now Judith will present you with your certificates.
Oh, they can't see
Yeah,
us?
exactly. And then
Oh.
angle the certificate just a little bit.
There's
Great. And
thousands
then-
of people
There
back
it is.
there. They're all
They're
screaming.
The
screaming
crowd
and
roars.
cheering. Woo-hoo.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Thank you so much.